wasn't he, about I don't think anyone has died as a result of this. Actually, some very interesting reporting coming out to show that people have indeed died. This is mainly children in rural Africa who have died because their AIDS medication, their antiretrovirals, have been just suddenly cut off.
Let's talk a little bit more about the American perspective on this. It was a 90-minute phone call, of course, between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Russia says it's agreed to stop striking energy facilities in Ukraine for 30 days. It is a first step towards a halt in fighting. John Bolton, the former US National Security Advisor and Ambassador to the UN, he spoke to us earlier, said this isn't really the limited ceasefire that it looks on paper.
No, I'd regard it as a redirection of Russian military efforts. There may be lots of reasons why Putin felt that it was advantageous at this point to give Donald Trump something he can declare victory over, which is something called a ceasefire, but which really isn't.
John Bolton there. Let's bring in Harriet Alexander, who is the senior US reporter for the Times. Harriet, how is the result of this call between Trump and Putin? How is that being digested in the United States at the moment? Because it's pretty Putin friendly, it has to be said.
Yes. I think it's certainly not the resounding result that Donald Trump wanted. He had, I think, hoped for much more. I mean, the words coming out of the White House that Trump himself was saying, they were all quite optimistic, weren't they, into the run up to this? Trump was really quite positive that Putin was going to agree to this 30-day complete ceasefire that Ukraine signed off on last week at that meeting in Saudi Arabia with Marco Rubio. So I think the US expectations were fairly high, but Putin has not delivered what they wanted, much more nuanced from the Russian leader. So I think Trump will, of course, try and spin this as a great victory for him and a very important first step. That's what he's said on social media. But I think it's not quite as resounding as he had hoped.
We know that Donald Trump is due to sign some executive orders soon. I presume that that's still happening and that he'll be taking some questions from reporters, Harriet. Do you think that that's what is going to be asked for some further clarification on actually how he feels about this, whether this agreement's viable?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that will certainly be an important topic of discussion. But, you know, there's so much going on, Kate, as you said. That's why we have to do the Trump dumps almost every day, because there is a huge amount of interest in all sorts of things in the US at the moment. The JFK files being released, the continued presence of Elon Musk, all of the internal things he's doing. And signing executive orders is one of Trump's favorite things. He's facing some significant legal challenges to that and to his migration policy. So there's a huge amount here that Trump will be asked about. Ukraine is just one of them.
Very busy. Let's talk about the JFK files. So he said yesterday, didn't he, Donald Trump, that they were going to be released today, around 80,000 pages related to the assassination of the former President John F. Kennedy. He said no redactions when he announced this yesterday. When do we think we're going to see them? Is this still on track to happen today?
Well, what we do know, Kate, is that there are some last-minute legal challenges to the release of these documents. So it could still come today. I mean, as I mentioned yesterday, I was quite surprised when he said, no redactions, because that's pretty unusual for something, for government documents to say no redactions at all. There will usually be some form of sort of attempt to keep national security information secret. So we don't know what these legal challenges are, but that could cause them to be delayed. We're just not yet sure.
People have been waiting decades for this, says Donald Trump. And just remind us, Harriet, we were talking yesterday, but for anyone who wasn't with us then, are we likely to get any bombshells?
The general consensus is no, probably not. I mean, of course, everyone is very, very eager to see, was it the CIA that killed JFK? Was it Russian mafia? Was it Italian mafia? Was it the Cubans? I mean, everyone is looking for this conclusive answer, and we're probably not going to get that. That is the general opinion.
Now, that would be a twist. If it was Russian mafia, where would that put Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? I mean, there's a lot to dig into. Okay, well, that's still, as far as we know, going to happen today. 80,000 pages related to the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy. Those, of course, have been classified documents, not seen by the public. The White House firmly rejected the suggestion, Harriet, from a French politician that the Statue of Liberty should be handed back to Paris. Here's the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt's reaction.
My advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
Okay, low-level French politician.
Yes.
Give me the history here.
Well, it was quite a barbed response, wasn't it? So essentially, this is a French member of the European Parliament. He's from a small left-wing party, certainly not, a big hitter in French politics, and it certainly wasn't coming from the Élysée itself. But this small politician held a rally on Sunday in Paris, at which he said that the spirit of the Statue of Liberty, which of course was given to the United States by France almost 140 years ago. They said that the spirit of the Statue of Liberty, of course, this, we welcoming your masses and the spirit of openness was being violated. So the French were quite prepared to take it back. Now, this left-wing politician got some cheers from his small crowd in Paris, but of course, asked about it yesterday, the White House press secretary said, no way was that happening. I mean, of course, it's not going to happen. But also she was pretty unpleasant, wasn't she? And some people online were pointing out that actually, if it wasn't for the French, then the Americans could still be singing, God Save the King. So it doesn't quite work one way.
Let's talk about something that's just happened in the last half an hour or so. This is a federal judge saying that Elon Musk and DOGE's USAID shutdown likely violated the US Constitution. Harriet, what can you tell us about this?
Really interesting. So, I mean, this is going to be the first of many such lawsuits because if you remember, USAID was pretty much the first one that Elon Musk went for when he was doing, as part of his move to reduce the government headcount and to reduce government expenditure. Controversial right from the beginning because a president cannot unilaterally just get rid of a government department. It needs congressional authorization, which of course was not received, but also Congress wasn't he about. I don't think anyone has died as a result of this. Actually, some very interesting reporting coming out to show that people have indeed died. This is mainly children in rural Africa who have died because their AIDS medication, their antiretrovirals, have been just suddenly cut off. This is beginning to kill people.
Goodness me. OK, well, that one will rumble on. I forgot to mention it earlier, but before you go, what is the link between ice hockey and Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? They're organising matches, aren't they, it seems, as a result of their call today?
Yeah, this one is very personal for Putin because we know he loves this strongman image, doesn't he? You remember those photos of him riding bareback across the tundra and flying his planes with flocks of geese and, scuba diving and all sorts of things. He does like this action man image. Anyway, ice hockey is one of his things. He's really passionate about ice hockey and judo. Russia has been cut out from the World Federation of Ice Hockey since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. But Trump and Putin apparently talked about it and said that it would be nice if the US and Russia could have an ice hockey game. So watch this space.
Oh, well, that's one way to broker peace. Is it the version of peace that Vladimir Zelensky and the West wants, though, and needs, requires? We'll keep across this for you this evening. Harriet Alexander, thank you again for being with us. This has been the Trump Dump. Harriet is senior US reporter for The Times, and you can read Harriet's work at thetimes.com and in the paper. Cheers, Harriet. Good to speak to you.
Thanks, Kate.